To address that by direction.
This is much. Don't you think this is better to look
I'd rather
at?
look at that.
I'm Carrie. Nice to meet you.
Glad to know, ma'am. I'm Jake McNiece. This is my wife, Martha.
Okay, great. We're working on a documentary on the whole D-Day here, on the paintball scenario, and what it means and what it's all about. So, can you tell me how you feel being here amidst?
This is terrific for me, especially it is because I attend a lot of these. This is the best organized, and it is bringing it down to earth, the honor that is deserving by veterans. It's focusing upon this nation as being one of the greatest nations that there is anywhere, and it enlivens the spirit of America. To me it does, that's what it means. And when I see these flags and these beautiful scenery here, and see all these young men in uniform that are willing to lay it on the line if it becomes necessary, which we hope it doesn't. But it's very encouraging to see this atmosphere, this place.
Great. So we've many people are telling us that they're so happy to have a hero in their midst. What are you best known for?
Well, I'm best known for being the biggest goof off the Army ever saw. I joined the Army just for one purpose, that was to fight a war and get it over with and go on home. And I didn't care for military. I didn't ever shine a shoe or wash a piece of clothes. I didn't salute officers, and I wouldn't pick up cigarette butts. I took every kind of training that they offered that would enhance my opportunity to, fight a good war. And I stayed in there 3 years and 5 months and 26 days. And normally after you're in there a month, you go in as a buck private, $21 a month then. And after 1 month of reasonable service, they'd make you a PFC, private first fighter, and raise you to $31 a month, where you could send allotments home if your wife or mother was ill. Well, I stayed in there over 3 years, and I never made PFC. I was the biggest goofball the Army ever had. But I soldiered good. I didn't back down on anything. I am one of only 2 men who made 4 combat jumps out of 50,000. The life expectancy of paratroopers was 1.5 jumps. And 2 of us made 4. Only 2 out of about 50,000 that tried it. And so my accomplishment was really in combat. Although I never made PFC, I was an active sergeant all the time, over anywhere from 30 to 180 men, giving them directions and so forth. But when I would jump into combat, they had to pay me while I was active. And then when I would come out, I wouldn't be out over a week till they would bust me down to buck private. I never held the rating of PFC all the time I was in there.
So did you jump over Normandy?
I made the jump into Normandy on D-Day, fought in there 36 days, went back to England, and we got re-equipped. We lost 70% in Normandy, and went back and they got replacements and everything. And we jumped in Holland, and we were to fight 6 days up there. And we accomplished everything they asked us to do in 3 days, in 36 hours. And asked to be relieved, and they wouldn't relieve us. So they used us as shock troops then for the next 78 days without relief or that. We didn't know what tours were. You just fought until you were dead. And I fought 78 days in Holland, which was my second jump. And when I got back, they gave me a 72-hour pass. That wasn't even an hour for each day I'd been up there, 78. So I didn't think that was quite equitable. And I stayed 10 more days, AWOL, without permission. And when I came back, they put me under arrest of quarters until they could decide what to do with me. And they had a group of paratroopers over there that they called Pathfinders. And they jumped anywhere at any time for anybody. And they usually lost 80 to 90% on each mission. It's just nearly plain suicide to be in it. And because of the high rate of casualties, they couldn't assign you to it. It was all volunteer. And if they wanted to get you killed, they'd try to get you to volunteer for pathfinding service. So they would have been very happy to see me killed, and they came and asked me if I would volunteer for it. And I thought it all over, and it looked like the war was over with, really. This was in early December of '44. I thought they were stationed at Shaw Grove Air Force Base, which was only 8 miles out of Oxford, England, the biggest university in Europe. So I thought there was more women and more whiskey right there, and less fighting than anywhere in the war. And that'd be a good place to be. So I volunteered for it when they asked me, not trying to be a hero or something like that. Really, I thought I was taking the coward's way out. And but I was fooled. About 10 days later, the Battle of the Bulge started. And Germany employed 20 divisions, and they were just sweeping through there. They had the same plans to make a blitzkrieg through there that they had did in 1939. And the 3 divisions that we had on the front, 2 of them were Green Division, and one of them was the 28th, the Bloody Bucket from Pennsylvania. They were a hardened crew. But those Germans were just running over them, and they were retreating in disarray. And they loaded the 101st Airborne Division on trucks down in France and rushed them in to the city of Bastogne. And the city of Bastogne had 7 major highways coming into it and 3 rail lines. And the Germans, in the Battle of the Bulge, had to have that city in order to resupply their people. And they took 20,000 airborne men out of the 101st Airborne Division by truck and moved them into Bastogne at midnight on December the 17th and told them not to retreat an inch and not to surrender a man. Just fight until the 20,000 was dead. That was the orders they had. Because it was important that they hold and maintain Bastogne. Of course, I was back in jolly old England, you know, furthering my education out there with these little college boys. And when they got surrounded and cut off completely, the weather was terrible. It's 22 degrees below zero, and snow and fog, and the weather was very inclement. And they asked me to take pathfinders in there and set up an aerial resupply. They were down to no blood, no medicine, no food, very few bullets left, and they had 7 divisions attack them. And it was so important that they had to hold this city and this communication that they decided they would send 20 pathfinders in there and see if we could set up an aerial resupply. And they had 1,000 C-47, that's your big cargo, loaded with blood, medicine, food, ammunition, gasoline, circling around in there over France, waiting to see if I could get a signal to them. And I dropped in there on the 23rd and set up a signal and made contact with aircraft, and they could fly in on it with that vision. And in 3 days, I brought in 1,440 tons of equipment in 3 days, which gave us plenty of stuff to fight with and resist this insurgency. And the boys held out and fought it through, and they claim it to be the greatest battle that the American military has ever pursued. In fact, they were issued the Presidential Unit Citation as a division, the only time it's ever happened. And when I went back then to England, back to Pathfinder headquarters, Colonel Sink found out that only one man out of the 20 had been killed, he was very disappointed. And he said, he said, you send them 60 SOB, those 6 SOBs back to me. Looks like I can kill them quicker than you can. And they said, we'll send 5 of them back, but we're going to keep McNiece. Said, he's essential to our operation. So I stayed with them then until in February, and on Friday the 13th, they asked me to make my 4th combat jump and to prove Germany in the Siegfried Line and set up an aerial resupply there for the 90th Division, which I did and made a success out of it. And by then the war was practically over, and they sent me back to my original unit, regimental headquarters, 506, and I went back and joined them, and they used us as shock troops down through southern Germany and Austria. We took Berchtesgaden, Hitler's Eagle's Nest, we took Goring's Big Castle, and then the war ended on May the 8th. And at the end of the war, they decided they would send soldiers home on a point system. If you got 5 points every time you shot, 5 points for every combat jump you made, 5 points for this, 5 points for that. Well, nearly every paratrooper in there had way yonder more than 185 points. Some of us had 150. But Eleanor Roosevelt was still alive at that time. Franklin had died. She went to Congress and went to the War Department and said, we cannot bring paratroopers home and release them in society. She says they're professional killers, and said we're going to have to bring them back and put them in camps and brainwash them and deprogram them. So we came home. They finally said we were going to bring them home anyway, and I kept track of an awful lot of these boys after they came home, and a number of them made multimillionaires. Most of them married one woman and raised 2 or 3 children, educated. We had one that went in construction business, and he made millions and millions of dollars. And he decided he would retire, sell his business and retire, and he sold his business for $10 million and went down and applied for passports and visa to Greece. And they told him he couldn't get a passport, that he wasn't an American citizen. And he said, what do you mean I'm not an American citizen? He had been married 5 times. He said, I paid y'all millions of dollars in taxes. He said, I fought a war with you for 4 years. He said, I went through college. He said, I've married half of the women in Southern California. He said, why am I not an American citizen? And they told him that he had, that his folks were not citizens. They had migrated here from Germany and gone to Mexico and worked in the mines and then came back. But they had contacted TB, and he was born in Mexico, and they never did naturalize. But we had others that would fly their own jet later to our reunion. They all became very successful people.
I have a couple other questions I'd like to ask you.
Young man.
What advice can you pass on to the paintball soldiers here this week for their big battle on Saturday?
They asked me to come down and talk to all the officers from company commanders on up in the 506 a couple of years ago, just before they were committed in Iraq. And I told them, I said, there's 4 things you want to do if you want to come home. I said, when you get over there, tear up the Geneva Convention. Don't go by it. Nobody else did. I said, they have people now, the media is taking pictures of a lot of you fellas killing men, women, and children and sending it all over the world. I said, every photographer you see with a camera on his back over, I said, kill him. Because I said, you're going to be forced to kill men, women, and children. And you don't want it going all over the world. I said, in the 3rd place, I said, they are sending a lot of our officers, our non-commissioned officers, to prison for mistreating prisoners of war. I said, don't get caught up in that trap. I said, don't take any prisoners, kill them all. And then there won't be any bad results. And I said, if you get sniper fire out of a crowd, I said, kill the crowd. And then you will have a sniper. They're taking advantage. Those snipers are hiding in between civilians, you know, and then killing Americans. So I said, just kill the crowd. And I said, those are 4 things you want to do if you want to come home. And be aggressive. If you hang back and hang back and hang back, they'll finally kill you. But if you're pushing them, they get disorganized and they're easy to kill.
Will you be watching the? Will you be watching the battle here, the scenario?
No, they're going to do a book signing tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And then they do one today, and then they'll be heading back home.
Okay. And then I guess I see here on your name tag. Can you tell me what's on your name tag and then describe?
Jake McNiece, Filthy 13. Did you ever see the show The Dirty Dozen? Have you seen the show The Dirty Dozen? It's a World War II movie, and it depicts my mission in Normandy. And it was they goofed it all up. They wanted me to be a consultant on the show, and I wouldn't do it because this was shortly after the war was over, and there were too many mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and wives still alive, more than the boys that I took in and got killed. I took 20 men in over there on D-Day night, and by daybreak I was down to 2 men. And so I didn't want to open wounds for those people and increase their sorrow, and I refused to do it. So they made up, they took newspaper articles and magazine articles and history from the Army, and they went ahead and made a show at the Dirty Dozen. Well, we were called Filthy 13. There's 13 men in a demolition saboteur stick. And we were outlaw soldiers. We didn't salute officers. We didn't keep our barracks clean. We hung pin-up pictures on the wall, whatever we wanted. We did, when we got ready to go to town, we just went to town. We didn't ask for a pass. We were goof-offs. And they called us the Filthy 13. We were living in haunted huts in England that were brick floored. And there wasn't any 2 bricks side by side that was on the same level. And you couldn't mop them. So we didn't even try. And they were feeding us slop, this terrible feed that we were getting. And this big Ernest Wells, Sir Manor House, he was the biggest tobacco man in Europe. And he had a game reserve there. He had about 140 deer, fowler and sack of deer there on his place. He had 2 fish hatcheries and a river Kennet ran through. And I would go out every other night and kill a deer, 2 deer. And I'd go out in his fisheries and gig his fish, you know. And he came out and he found that garbage ditch heads plumb full of deer heads and hides and all this refuse we'd been eating. And they tried to pin it on us, and we wouldn't confess or admit it. And the officer had to spend many thousands of dollars to pay for this. He brought suit against the government. We were just an outlaw group of soldiers that was there to fight a war, and that only. We didn't salute, we didn't pick up cigarette butts.
Where was the Filthy 13 on D-Day?
We jumped in, we were supposed to jump in, drop in, right near Saint-Côme-de-Mont. That was our drop zone. And then the bridges, we had 3 bridges to go up. Our plane got hit so heavy that we were losing altitude. And you approach your drop zone at 400 feet because the Germans didn't have any radar that could pick up articles under 400. But when you start getting hit and losing altitude, you've got to get out of there real quick or you're doomed. So I moved my men out of the plane down near Saint-Mère-Église, which was about 8 miles from where my bridges were. And by the time we got down to the bridges, I had lost 17 of my men. And that was our D-Day operation. And then our next jump was in Holland. the next one passed on. I didn't
Their
come to
blowing
it.
and holding those bridges prevented the Germans from resupplying their troops at the beaches, or reinforcing their troops at the beaches. So their mission was more important than any one man. Let's give him a chance to get a drink. His voice, to me, it's about as real as it could get without really being.
Okay, I'm sorry if you could start again.
This is about a real demonstration of what combat would be like. You know, firing blanks doesn't mean anything, but at least firing paintballs, you can tell when you've been hit. And it's really, to me, more realistic, would seem more realistic than anything else I've seen done. I've seen reenactments and the air demonstration teams, the Liberty Jumpers and the World War II air demonstration teams everywhere. They don't like to be called reenactors because they said there's nothing acting about jumping out of a plane via parachute. And you people are not shooting bullets, but you're doing the next thing to it. So it's as close as you can get to actual combat, I believe.